Urban Gothic Episode 9, the one that starts off with a voiceover and one of the stupidest reasons ever given for moving a family across the Atlantic Ocean.
My parents thought taking me out of America would make me a better person. I tried telling them at the time that Britain's strict censorship laws would probably only make me more frustrated. But then they don't understand what horror movies mean to me. You see, I don't like horror movies. I love them.
Random American guy. They couldn't have just moved to Toronto? It's practically the UK anyway. Cold weather, royalty, fish and chips, hating people who speak French. Anyway, as you could tell from his line, the guy has a hilariously bad American accent. But that doesn't mean he's not actually American. Even American actors in the UK have to have terrible American accents. It's the law. This is our star, the American expat. He's American for the same reason that Mike TV and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is. Americans are clearly the only people who can develop problems because they watch far too much TV or movies. But yes, he has problems. He's obsessed with horror movies. Scream was still hip at this point, and this guy makes Jamie Kennedy look butch, sexy, smart, and best of all, like a Shakespearean actor.
And if they think that makes me some sort of psycho, fuck them. They didn't have to grow up during the 80s.
Mr. Superpower, you're talking to yourself again.
That's Detention, Kevin. Friday night special.
Okay, I've watched that several times and I don't know what he says. All I know is that if the scene is to be believed, the teacher had no problems hearing him say fuck them less than a minute earlier. Anyway, he doesn't much care for detention and so fantasizes about killing his teacher. Of course, he really does this, which I'm pretty sure would be construed as a threat in an inner-city London school and probably earn him a nice visit from a nice policeman. But fuck that, because after the credits we have a low-budget British TV answer to The Breakfast Club. Detention with a sporty guy, a black-haired girl, a stylish girl, and a sullen guy. The only question is, where's Anthony Michael Hall? Oh, there he is, masturbating. Ask a silly question, get an answer about masturbation. Anyway, Detention, the teacher, who looks strangely like Douglas Adams but a little bit older, has a conversation with everyone that sounds nothing like any conversation any real person has ever had with anyone else ever.
You are all here because in your own special ways you are all mediocre, a cross-section stereotype of the acne-sweltering masses.
Then there's something that's actually a bit funny. Xenophobia!
Wait a minute, what's the new kid doing here?
Well, he looks less than mediocre. He looks normal.
He's American and therefore not to be trusted, friendly.
The teacher has everyone write an essay about their best self and how to find it, and plays music that really should have turned up in the Insane Asylum episode. Oh, look, nasal smoking in the middle of detention and right in front of a teacher. Judd Nelson would be so proud. And the teacher runs out of coffee and leaves the room. And suddenly the episode goes from being Breakfast Club 2, Randy from Scream goes to detention, to Breakfast Club 3, Randy from Scream starts quoting dialogue while it's spoken by someone else, just like David Tennant did in the only good episode of New Who written by Russell T Davies. They're obscure films, but they're well worth the search. And then, of course, the Premonitions begin.
Something is about to happen to all of us.
What exactly?
That.
Oh, don't tell me this is where someone says, shouldn't someone go and find out what that was?
Shouldn't someone go find out what that was?
Dark Corridors. Oh, I'm so glad I watched. So, hello, dying teacher who had the strength to knock over a locker, which was in front of a door for some reason, and that makeup job makes him look like he's dying, but also pregnant. And of course, all the others decide to come out at the worst possible time. Well, I suppose it could be worse if Randy had his dick out, but it wouldn't be that much worse.
Kevin, did you just kill our teacher?
No, you gotta believe me, I didn't do this.
Hey, genius, you heard the old man get hurt while you were all in detention. He was sent to investigate. What did he do? Wait until the old man left the room and then he made some sort of suspicious noise that makes everyone suspicious, makes him get sent to investigate, find the teacher, and then kill him? So, like all groups of teens that are convinced they have a murderer in their midst, they threaten to make Randy drink semen. Understandably, this makes him feel like explaining what he thinks is going on.
Eviscerate.
I'm trying to can always ask Kevin to whip up a fresh batch.
It's the name of the first real slasher movie. It preceded Halloween by months, but
Well, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be the only slasher film to precede Halloween.
nobody understood the title, so it sat on the back shelves in rental hell before your Video Nasty Act killed it off forever.
Why would it have done that? That act just banned notable horror and gore films and cut others. If the film was as unfamous as he says, then frankly the act wouldn't have banned it, just cut it. And if it was banned, it'd only be banned in the UK. Horror fans would get it abroad. There'd be an eventual inferior glossy Hollywood remake. A slasher film banned in its country of origin with a weird title would get a retitling and become available in other countries. A VHS and DVD release would eventually happen. But yeah, sorry, I'll stop talking about how impossible that is, because there's plenty more impossible stuff for me to talk about coming up.
We just lived through the first 10 minutes of it.
Like that. Randy is convinced that they're literally trapped inside the film Eviscerate made in the late 70s. There's one slight problem. That can't happen, because he's there, talking to people, influencing their actions. He is the observer, changing the quantum status of a particle. Unless the film has a metaplot, but the first slasher film having a metaplot about a genre that it hasn't created yet, that'd just be massively egotistical on the part of the makers of the film, and massively stupid on the part of the makers of this. So yeah, to prove that they're in a slasher film, he convinces someone to try and leave. This of course leads to the guy exploding, because one thing slasher films are famous for is the spontaneous combustion of cast members who go too far from where the killer is.
I hate being right about these things.
He hates being right about these things. Oh, it's obvious. Last summer he was trapped in American History X. His jaw's never been quite the same since. Now I wonder, why has no one called the police? The world outside exists just fine, and these people are in no position to know just how shit the police in urban Gothic can be. Anyway, he dies because people exploded in the first slasher film. So, about the metaness of the plot. Logically, this would be a lot more coherent if Randy was just ignored by the others and they were just playing their parts. He could ultimately be forced by circumstance and bad luck to kill the others, and therefore become the killer of the film. Now that I think about it, I think the reason Eviscerate wouldn't have gone down well wouldn't have been the title. It would be because the plot doesn't make any fucking sense to regular audience goers in the late 70s. There's loads of referencing to a genre that doesn't exist, and there's random people exploding. But now I think about it, the film could have been a hit in the late 60s with the stoner crowd. But I think I've spent more time than the makers thinking about this. So on with the plot!
You've seen the film, you know who it is.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. Eviscerate was shot with 5 different endings.
5 different endings, which means there can only be 5 potential killers, assuming it's one of them, which would mean there needs to be 5 actual versions of the film too. And since there's 5 potential killers, that means as people die it should be pretty easy to work out which version is being followed, and so you can work out what to do. Anyway, Ali Sheedy doesn't much care for this and so runs off. Randy drops more rules and tells everyone their chances of survival, based on the slasher genre as a whole, rather than just talking about what's happening in the film he's convinced they're in. Dumbass.
What about you? We haven't done you yet.
I'm the guy that's gonna show you how to break the frame.
The last guy who tried to break the frame exploded! You all saw it! Just saying! So they set up defences and collect some weapons in the woodwork class, which of course is down to red mood lighting. Why don't they put the lights on? And why are there no adults at the school? No school has only one teacher on campus while there are kids on detention. So, having been told because of their slasher movie archetypes that they're probably going to have sex, these two decide to do it. Which leads to the best thing in the episode.
So, we're gonna do it or what?
Sure.
Cool.
Ew.
What's wrong?
I don't know.
But you do like me, don't you? I mean, you think I look all right?
Yeah, I just kind of think you'd look better with a mustache.
Well, what about these? I mean, you do like these, don't you?
Yeah, again, I just keep thinking really hairy thoughts.
Okay. Well, when you were a kid, did you play with Action Man or Barbie?
Action Man, of course. Your buddy was good friends with Ken.
Oh, you're not supposed to be gay. You're supposed to be horny.
I can be gay and horny.
Did you see the way you pouted then?
Look, if I stay here, are you going to keep on at me like this?
There. Definite campy gesture.
Oh, did not straight gay.
You sashayed. You sashayed on the spot.
Please.
That is awesome. Sexuality alteration by way of movie storyline. Obviously in the film the jock's character was gay, but a gay lead? A gay lead who's a jock in an early slasher movie? Unlikely, but it explained the homophobic mincing stereotype. In the reddest lit woodwork room ever, Randy finds his special project. I shit you not, katana. It's a woodwork room, where you make stuff from wood. A, how the fuck? B, I wish I went to that school. C, how the fuck? D, this is meant to be a film set in the late 70s. In England. That's not an early slasher. That's a trauma movie.
See that button? Works like a cattle prod. It delivers a 50,000 volt smack in the face.
An electric katana? Okay. That is trauma. That's Sergeant Kabukiman NYPD 2 material right there. So Ali Sheedy leaps over tables in order to see the woman in purple, grabs her legs and sticks a knife against her throat. Then this.
That's for shoving a torch in my face.
You could have just walked up to her and said hi. Ali Sheedy, you were a douche. Back in the woodwork room, there's a figure at the door, and a few nail gunnings later, Emilio Estevez has been hung out to dry.
You fucking killed him! No.
Yeah, he did, but he also made it easier to work out which version of the film they're in. Anyway, the girls are watching a copy of Eviscerate they found in Randy's locker on VHS. That's one of those DVDs that you could club people with that you see in museums besides other ancient clubbing devices, like maces. Anyway, the film looks identical to what happened in the woodwork room. Same location, same people, same clothes. So the film, that I remind you was made in the late 70s, has a bunch of people in late 90s fashions. And since Randy loved the film so much that he had a copy in his locker, why did he never look into the mirror and notice how much he looked like someone in the film? Or that his school seems to be in the location they filmed in? Also, how could Ali Sheedy have found his locker, broke into it, got the video, found a TV/VHS and watched the film to that point? And why does no one comment on the fact that the actors look just like them? Anyway, everyone's convinced that Randy's the killer.
Even if I was the killer, no matter how far or how fast you ran, I'd still find you at the last minute and kill you anyway.
Great way to convince them that you're not the killer there. Anyway, Randy hears someone scream and so either goes to help or to see who's killing someone he's meant to kill and runs into Judd Nelson, who gets one of the greatest last words insult combos ever.
You American.
And somehow Ali Sheedy has found a crossbow, because they're everywhere in schools. Although a school that lets one make an electro katana, the sort of weapon used by Space Marine captains, I have to wonder what they wouldn't let these kids make.
I don't suppose complimenting your hair would distract you right now?
Excuse me, could I just distract you for a brief second?
So Randy sets up a trap to kill Ali Sheedy in the same way that the teacher was killed.
I hate you, Miss Rogers.
What makes you think I did that?
Well, perhaps the fact that you just used the same trap to kill her. I'm not saying that you killed the teacher, but I can see why she thinks that. So Randy goes back into the detention room and through the magic of late 90s boombox technology finds out that the music had a subliminal message in it.
You will become your better self in spirit and body. Your inner truth will become written word, and written word will become reality. You will not know you have changed, only that you are better, and in turn, that you have made the world a better space.
Okay, I'll bite. What happened to the teacher? Was the only way he could better the world through leaving it as quickly as possible? So the episode has now worked out that Molly Ringwald is insane and is deliberately arranging for Randy to recreate the film because of the effects of the subliminal messaging. Okay, then why does the film look identical to what's happened? And why did the guy explode? And why is everyone following the plot of the film? And why hasn't he worked out how it ends yet because there's only 2 people left? And why did the school let him make an electro katana? So yeah, he made the movie turn real because of the subliminal stuff, even though that's impossible. And she arranged for him to kill everyone, even though that's impossible. And then she grabs the sword mid-swing, even though that's impossible. And then she stabs and electrocutes him, which is possible, but that fucking weapon shouldn't even exist! But then there's a montage of the other possible endings, which is impossible because those characters are already dead. Unless there's 5 alternate versions of the film as a whole. But that wouldn't fit on the VHS that they were using to watch the film earlier. Oh, and then they reveal that it's just a TV show. Fuck. This gives Logic the finger, and then proceeds to finger Logic in the ass, and then fist it.
That's her out. Where's my coat? I'm freezing.
Okay, this makes no sense. It's ill thought out and frankly pretty stupid, but on the other hand it's fun and a guilty pleasure among the eps. It's one of the better episodes, even though it fits nearly as much stupidity in it as an episode of Bone Kickers.
doing some research. Something you should see.
Oh, you're not gay too, are you?